having someone who has a generous spirit on and off camera. You feel free to create something with this person. You feel free to fail with them, knowing that it's okay, and you're trying to figure it out together. That made, Will Smith an incredible producer and also a fantastic scene partner. A lot of times when these stories are told, these historic male figures, these stories, particularly heroic male figures, and we see them all the time, particularly in biopics, right? And the role that women play often in them is merely to move the narrative that centers around the dude. And I'm exhausted with that. And thankfully, I was working with some really good-hearted and solid men who weren't threatened by telling the truth of Miss Oracene and wanted to tell her truth fully. And in order to do that, they had to give her space.
Throw it to the sky. Yeah, that's it. There you go.
They're not going to Wimbledon like this. Not with you and me on those raggedy courts.
We just got to stick to the plan. We got champions in the other room.
You told him all this?
Richard, I'm impressed. I think you might just have the next Michael Jordan.
I saw in Miss Oracene what I see in my sister, what I saw in my grandmother, what I see in my mother, and so many women in our lives. They literally keep the world going. Literally keep the world going. And yet at the end of the day, when they go to bed at night, there's no one there saying, great, thank you so much for doing this for us. And it should be. My sister deserves an applause at the end of her day, every day, for what she does. And so Miss Oracene is that. But she was that, and she was raising tennis champions, teaching herself how to play tennis so she could teach her girls, particularly Serena. She was their seamstress. She made their tennis uniforms. She was working additional jobs when Mr. Richard was not working. This woman was doing all of this in service of just being a mother, but then also grooming Venus and Serena Williams. And so I felt it was my job to correct what I felt was an injustice, that people don't know who she is, like myself. And I consider myself as someone, I'm a womanist. I'm always, you know what I mean? Like, trying to champion the voice of the woman, the experience of a woman that's been left out, that's been left in the margins. And even I failed in that. So I just felt it was my personal responsibility to try to speak for Miss Oracene as best as I could. I had heard about it, and I think that when I heard about it, they were going through their, due diligence of finding the person to play the role. I wasn't the first choice, and that's all right. It's okay. I had to fight for it, but I'm used to fighting, so it's all right. And I auditioned, taped, did the whole thing. My sister did a couple of tapes with me. And then that led to convincing them a little bit, but I had to go a couple steps further. Met with Ray on the phone, had a good conversation with him. That led to another meeting with Will in California. So while I was doing Lovecraft Country, I had to get on a plane on the down low and fly to Los Angeles to meet with him, and that was just crazy. The next part of it, which is the hardest part, is the joy of getting the job, and then you actually have to do it. So that became me sort of feeling shame, because I did not know the truth of Miss Oracene Price. I did not know that she was their coach. I read that she described herself as their coach, and I had such a cynical response to that, and felt that was such an overreach of her self-estimation. Do you know what I mean? And the shame I felt when I found out, I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about it, when I found out that she was as much their coach as he was, as Mr. Richard was. He was a visionary, he had the idea, but she was the person who was executing it. They did these epic recordings of Miss Oracene, and I would just listen to them every day, and they became my oral Bible. They would be in my ear all the time, and so that's that's pretty much what happened.
This is their life. You gotta let them decide.
Venus Williams.
What you want?
Let's show all of those people that I can handle what's coming.
We had been talking about that scene since we shot that probably in November, but we had been talking about that scene since January. We started rehearsals in January, and then we shut down, like everybody shut down. But we thankfully did not shoot that before we shut down, because it wasn't quite there yet. All of us wanted to work on it more. We had a great script in what Zach Balin wrote. It was already excellent, but all of us felt that we could do more with it and go further with it. And for me, I just wanted to say all of the things I felt Miss Oracene would have said in that moment. And honestly, I'll be honest and say this. I wasn't just talking to, yes, I was the character of Oracene talking to Richard in that scene, but I will be honest and say I was Miss Oracene. I was who I imagined Miss Oracene being and saying it to the world. And so I don't apologize about that. And I worked with Zach and Will. Even the night before, we were in the back of a house that we were shooting in all day. Everybody was going home, but we were still trying to get those words right. That morning, I talked to Isha Price, Venus and Serena's sister. She was helping me, telling me things. We tried to put all of that in that scene, because I just felt like there are going to be so many more stories told about Venus and Serena, because they are these Chekhovian, Shakespearean characters. They have that August Wilson characters that where we return to all the time to find out things about ourselves. And so we look to a character of Venus and Serena to do that. So people are going to be mining their story for eternity, well after you and I are gone. But how often do we have the chance to speak for their mother and also speak for her while she's alive? Yeah, that's what was in me. That was what was churning in me that day. And Will was Richard Williams. He was that. And we had never rehearsed the scene. Both of us were trying to get the words right, but we didn't rehearse it, and we did not talk about it. And I didn't even realize that until, having these discussions now I do. But I think we both just were feeling our own sort of hurts. Just were able to, I think, honestly, just express that in a very real, in a very raw way, I think.
You gonna show them how dangerous you are? Let me see your dangerous face. That's your dangerous face. Make some dangerous noises. There you go. That's your dangerous face. That's okay. Don't do that for the people.
These young women, they loved each other. So, and the evidence of that is that some of the footage that you see in the film was Ray shooting them when they weren't aware that they were on camera. He was just capturing what was in front of him, completely unscripted. So those young women love each other and still love each other. It was a really beautiful thing to see. I was like, you should get that, Ray. But they were doing TikTok videos, you know what I mean? So it's not of the time. But yeah, that's just who they were. But I will say, there's not enough can be said about Will, and I've heard him say that he felt like that he was their father. He was their, film father, but he felt like he was their father in their presence, and that's how I felt. I felt like I was their mother when I was around them, and I meant that, and I actually did feel that way. But he also created an environment on that set that was so loving and so generous and so open-hearted, and not allowing any kind of, he wouldn't allow people to be treated bad in his presence. That can happen a lot in filmmaking. People think that they're doing brain surgery and they're not. And he always wanted it to make it a joyful experience for everybody, and particularly these girls. I think some of the best actors, period, are generous people. And they come into an experience with you where they're open to having a human experience with you, because you got a big old freaking camera in your face. Like, it is a voyeuristic experience. You trying to have something real, but then you got this big old thing in your face that tells you every minute that, what you're doing is fake. But what helps that is having someone who has a generous spirit on and off camera. That's not always the case. Everybody's not that way. That's a gift when it is that way. And so when it's that way, you feel free. You feel free to take risks. You feel free to create something with this person. You feel free to fail with them, knowing that it's okay, and you're trying to figure it out together. And that made Will Smith an incredible producer and also a fantastic scene partner. This is my season. I love watching these kind of, I'm a geek like that, My movie watching season starts officially in September, because that's when these kinds of movies kind of rolled out. I love Jessica Chastain in The Eyes of Tammy Faye Baker. I just feel like Jessica Chastain is just this fearless actor, and it's just a great thing to behold. And this woman wasn't nominated, but I just loved Ruth Negga in passing. Beautiful, beautiful performance. I love Penelope Cruz in Parallel Mothers. I think Pedro, he just allows women to exist on screen unfettered, and when you see his films, because we're not used to seeing women take that kind of space, especially in American cinema, it feels so strange. It feels so weird. But really, we're just watching a woman in this really sort of domestic situation. She gets pregnant by a dude. It doesn't work out. Her and other women get pregnant at the same time. But we just watch this play out, and then it has that overarching thing of the burying the dead, or the people who were, victims of that war. It's so pleasant and affirming, and to watch something that's creative, that's really just a reflection of a human experience. And so don't get me started. I could go on and on.